as our Eagles insider. And also he's got a new podcast out there, which we'll find about, called Birds Buzz. Andrew DiCecco joins us on the Comcast Business Hotline. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, Johnny. Good morning. How are you?
Good, man. All right. First reaction, yesterday's game, most complete win of the season. Feeling good going into the bye. What's your reaction from yesterday?
Yeah, that was sort of a return to form for the Eagles. I thought they were the bullies on the block. They got back after it after the Giants imposed their will a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. Second play of the game, 65-yard run for Saquon Barkley, and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson paved the way. But I thought the Eagles dictated the flow of that game and sort of punched them in the mouth, and the Giants wanted no part of it. That was very evident early in that game. They had 254 yards between Saquon Barkley and Tank Bigsby, 276 in total. They got some really good performances from players who don't ordinarily play, like Brett Toth. I thought he did a tremendous job stepping in there in place of the injured Cam Jurgens. Jahan Dotson had the 40-yard touchdown. It was just a complete win and reminded me a lot of 2024 in the way they were able to take care of business early and be those bullies on the block.
Yeah, Tim McManus on the show on Friday had said that he felt like the tone in the locker room last week, all week, was not necessarily revenge, but we have to be more physical. We have to win the line of scrimmage. That's how we're going to set the tone this week. And they came out, and that's exactly what it was. Did you get the same feel last week when talking to the players and when you were in the locker room?
Yeah, I sure did. It wasn't so much about revenge, but rather executing their assignments and taking care of what they need to handle and not getting caught up in they need to get one back for the way that Week 6 went for them. And really, they know how talented they are, John, and look across the board in that first matchup. They got dominated on all three facets of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. And the big buzzword coming out of that game was details. We got away from our details. This is not the standard that we pride ourselves on, and they cleaned all that up, and they didn't necessarily waste any energy on revenge. Instead, their focus was on trying to establish solutions and be more consistent, not just play crisp in quarters 1 and 3, but complete it and play all 4 quarters, and they were able to do that.
Saquon's injury, and thank God they have a bye week to where now you're not really worried about it as much. Any idea or any insight to how serious it was or what we're talking about?
Yeah, so he pulled up on that 28-yard run late in the game there. It was a groin injury. He said it's nothing to worry about. He could have went back in, but obviously at that point in the game that wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, he should be good to go for November 10th when the Eagles take on the Packers.
How much of that yesterday was Saquon getting back to being Saquon, or just the fact that lining up under center and they were getting much better push on the Giants' defensive line? How much of that was offensive line play?
Yeah, well, I've never been of the belief that Saquon was any different than he was last season. There was a culmination of things such as the health of the offensive line, the execution. Saquon himself mentioned that, that sometimes you can't take losses. You have to be able to hit the hole and take what defenses are giving you. And some of it had to do with the under center runs as well. And the pin and pull movements that Brett Toth and the offensive line was able to execute in that game. They were able to capitalize against an aggressive Giants front. And I think having played them once before and knowing their tendencies also played into it. But they blew them off the ball, and that was sort of the Eagles' style that we've grown accustomed to seeing. I don't think it had anything to do with Saquon suddenly being revitalized as much as it had to do with the Eagles executing and taking advantage and staying with the run.
So the trade deadline's coming up in, 2 Tuesdays now? So right at the bye week, Eagles have the bye, and then the trade deadline is the following Tuesday. Adam Schefter, as they often do, the Sunday story comes out. And the story is the Eagles are not expected to trade A.J. Brown before deadline. But in the third paragraph of the story, it says the Eagles would be willing to listen to any trade offer, but sources believe Philadelphia would not be willing to part with Brown for anything less than a blockbuster offer, which is not expected to be forthcoming. So they're willing to listen, but they don't expect it. What's your read on the availability of A.J. Brown? And the headline is they're not trading him, but if you don't have to look that far into the article, to where you can see that the Eagles, for the right offer, would be willing to trade.
Everything I've gathered over, since this has been a topic suggests that he's not going anywhere. And I firmly believe that as well. The Eagles, if they were to have traded A.J. Brown, that ends their Super Bowl quest, right? They're not winning a Super Bowl without A.J. Brown. The A.J. Brown makes them a better football team. He's one of the best players at his position, and the Eagles realize that they have an opportunity in front of them, and A.J. Brown's going to be a big part of it. And so you see these things, and you see quote-unquote blockbuster and all that. I would be floored if something happened to that effect. It's my understanding that he's not going anywhere. Now, could there be a different conversation in the offseason? Sure, but you look at the dead cap hit in 2026, I believe, is $43.5 million. This year alone would be, I believe, 17.5. Now the numbers tend to fluctuate based on where you're looking, but I just don't see that as something that's going to happen.
That's why I was texting you this morning, because when you Google it, you get a wide variety of answers to how much of a cap it would be. Can you trade him with a June 1st designation or whatever? So the reality is that in the offseason, because I agree with you, I think it's unlikely at the trade deadline, but in the offseason they could potentially do it. Just to kind of get back into it though a little bit. I mean, he does seemingly weekly put out different social media tweets. Would you agree that A.J. Brown seems unhappy on this team right now?
Yeah, he does seem, frustrated, unhappy, and who knows? For all we know, John, there's some of it could be a little bit of trolling, but A.J. is, I think he's very much misunderstood in the sense that some players, some people are never satisfied, and I think you see that sometimes with great players, and that's what fuels them to reach that level. And he knows that he can make an impact on a game. He likes to be involved, and knowing the way this offense runs, it's not always going to look the same every week, right? I mean, you're going to see games like you saw yesterday where they lean on the running attack and they're able to roll up 276 passing yards, and Jalen throws for 179. They're going to win the football game, but AJ's not going to be able to impose his will on defensive backs and have the impact that he knows that he can have. So I think it's sort of a push-pull and an interesting case here. But, yeah, you do sense some frustration here and there. But ultimately, and being around AJ for as long as I have, he cares about winning. He's known for being a really good teammate. You see how he interacts with teammates. Yep. And he's immersed himself in being a Philadelphia Eagle since he's been here. So I think that there is just so many different avenues to explore when you look at this situation.
Yeah, and AJ's, I've never heard anything but that he's loved in the locker room and the organization. So this isn't one of these AJ's a bad guy or whatever. The defense yesterday, as far as getting to the quarterback, probably the most active we've seen this year. I mean, really, like when you're looking at positives heading into the bye week, like the defense wasn't the same. They had some injuries. They were trying to figure out the edge rushing position. Brandon's going to come back after the bye week, but they were getting after Jackson Dart yesterday pretty well.
Yeah, 5 sacks for the team. Moro Jomo picked up another sack. That's 4 on the season. He leads the Eagles. But I think the player who I was impressed with the most was Jalix Hunt. He rushed the quarterback, or he had 9 pressures on 22 rushes, picked up his first sack on the season. I think he was really active and flowing to the football. And then if you look beyond that game, John, Nolan Smith should be returning sometime in November. Brandon Graham will be back in the fold. Azeez Ojulari will be returning from the hamstring. Do I still think the Eagles could stand to add another player? Of course, because then you're allowing some of those other players that we just mentioned to settle into their roles that they're probably more ideally suited. But they really capitalized against a porous Giants offensive line, and that's really what you want to see. And then all of a sudden you see what the secondary reaped the benefits. I don't think Keely Ringo was targeted much at all, if at all, in that game, and they're able to kind of mask some of those other things, which is why I believe that edge rusher is the most important position to upgrade.
Tell us about your podcast, Birds Buzz, which is available wherever you get your podcasts on the Fanatic app. This is a Fanatic podcast. When are you recording, and so like what are the dates of your releases and things like that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I record Thursday mornings after my morning hit with John and Andrew, and it's released at 6 o'clock. Now, this week's going to be a little bit different because I'll be going away in the middle of the week, trying to take advantage of some of the downtime. So I'm going to shoot for tomorrow, but it's really good stuff. I like to really take folks behind the curtain. I don't do any hot takes. It's all informed insight and analysis covering players from 1 through 53 and really trying to shed light on everyone's favorite team. And hopefully everyone's liking it so far. We have 3 episodes completed at this point.
Very cool. Birds Buzz with Andrew DiCecco, our Eagles insider. Where are you going? You're going away? You believe this, Ray Dunn? Dude's taking a vacation already?
Wait, I checked in with them on the phone. I was like, where are you going?
Where are you going?
I'm going to be visiting family.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. Well, listen, enjoy, and we'll talk to you, okay?
Appreciate it, John. Take care.
All right, buddy. There you go.
Thanks for watching Middays with Marks. Like and subscribe right here. If you like and subscribe, you probably are loving what you're watching. There's more of it right here. Check it out.